Hello, everyone. I am Natasha, your host for today. If you are new here, I would like to tell you that we upload a new English learning video every day on our channel to help you improve your English faster. In today's episode, you will not only improve your English listening skills, but also your speaking and vocabulary skills. In today's Advanced Fluency Masterclass, we're diving into powerful techniques and practice that will help you move from a B1 level to a C2 level in English. We will go through real-life examples that will help you expand your vocabulary, build natural sentence flow, and use sophisticated expressions to maintain your fluency. Whether you're speaking in professional meetings, writing important messages, or having casual conversations, these advanced tools will help you sound more confident and natural. By the end of this video, you'll not only understand how to use advanced English in daily life, but also how to practice in a way that steadily builds you up to the highest level. Before we start the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and also press the bell icon if you want more helpful English learning episodes like this. So, grab a pen and paper. Let's get started. When we think about moving from a B1 level in English to a C2 level, the first thing that comes to mind is vocabulary. Vocabulary is the foundation of fluency. Without the right words, we cannot express ideas fully. We cannot describe emotions accurately, and we cannot participate in advanced conversations naturally. At the B1 level, you already understand the basics. You know how to introduce yourself, talk about your day, and share opinions in simple sentences. But at the C2 level, you must learn how to shape your words into precise, rich, and flowing expressions that carry confidence and clarity. For example, at the B1 level, you might say, "I am tired today because I worked a lot." That is correct, but it is simple. At the C2 level, you could say, "I am exhausted after such a demanding day at work," or "I feel drained after handling so many challenging tasks today." Notice how the meaning is the same, but the advanced versions show variety, emotion, and stronger vocabulary. This is the first step we are going to practice together, learning to take simple sentences and expand them into advanced, fluent expressions. Let's practice together. I'll give you a basic sentence, and you try to say it in a more advanced way. Here's the first one. The food was good. Now, how can we make it sound more advanced? You could say, "The food was delicious," or "The meal was absolutely delightful," or even, "The flavors were exquisite, and every bite felt satisfying." Each of these upgrades shows you how to go from simple vocabulary to richer, more advanced vocabulary. Pause here, repeat after me, and try to create your own advanced version. Now let's try another one. The basic sentence is, "I don't like this movie." At the C2 level, you might say, "This movie doesn't appeal to me," or "I found this film rather uninteresting," or "The storyline failed to capture my attention." Can you hear the difference? Each version is clearer, more expressive, and closer to what advanced speakers would naturally say. This kind of practice is what will push you from B1 to C2, step by step. Another important area is connectors. At the B1 level, many learners often use simple connectors like and, but, because. At the C2 level, however, you must use more advanced connectors, such as although, nevertheless, moreover, consequently. On the other hand, these connectors make your speech smoother and more logical. For example, instead of saying, I wanted to go out, but it was raining, you could say, although I wanted to go out, the heavy rain kept me indoors. Or, I wanted to go out, nevertheless, the weather forced me to stay inside. These connectors are like bridges that carry your ideas forward in a professional and fluent way. Let's practice this together. Repeat the simple sentence after me. I stayed home because I was tired. Now upgrade it. I decided to stay home since I was feeling exhausted. Another version, I stayed home as I was completely worn out after work. And an advanced version, I remained at home, for fatigue had overwhelmed me by the end of the day. Do you notice how each version becomes richer and more advanced? That is exactly the type of training that will lift you toward the C2 level. When learning at the B1 level, many students hesitate to use new words because they fear mistakes. But at the C2 level, confidence is key. You must dare to use new vocabulary and advanced structures in real conversations. Making mistakes is part of the process. In fact, each mistake is like a stepping stone toward fluency. For example, if you use a difficult word incorrectly, you may feel embarrassed, but the next time, you will remember it better, and soon, it will become a natural part of your speech. So in this masterclass, I encourage you to practice loudly, without fear, and to embrace every mistake as progress. Now, let's do a short daily life practice exercise. Imagine you had a long day at school or work. At the B1 level, you might say, my day was busy. Now, let's push it to C2. Try saying, my day was incredibly demanding, filled with non-stop activities. Or, today was overwhelming, with back-to-back responsibilities that left me little time to rest. Another option could be, it was a hectic day, packed with challenging tasks that required constant focus. Repeat these after me slowly, and try to picture yourself saying them in a real conversation. The more you connect your words to your life, the faster you will progress. Finally, let's talk about rhythm and tone. Fluency is not just about vocabulary. It is also about how you deliver your sentences. At B1, many learners speak word by word, with pauses that break the natural flow. At C2, you must learn to speak in chunks, linking words together. For example, instead of saying each word separately like, I went to the store, try saying it smoothly as, I went to the store. And then, for advanced practice, I went to the store to pick up some essentials before dinner. Notice how the sentence flows naturally when spoken in rhythm. This kind of fluency comes from shadowing practice, where you repeat sentences exactly as you hear them, copying the tone and flow of native speakers. We will continue practicing this throughout the lesson. One of the clearest signs of progress from B1 to C2 is the ability to describe things with precision. At B1, you may describe something in broad or simple terms. For example, you might say, the weather is nice. But at C2, you need to add more color and detail. You could say, the weather today is pleasantly warm, with a gentle breeze that makes it comfortable to walk outside. Or, the day feels refreshing, the air is crisp, and the sunlight is perfectly balanced, not too harsh, not too weak. Notice how these advanced sentences paint a picture. At higher levels, your English should not just inform, but also create images and emotions for the listener. Let's try a practice together. The basic sentence is, "My room is small." At an advanced level, you could say, "My room is compact but cozy, with enough space for everything I need." Or, "Though the room is modest in size, it feels warm and inviting because of its simple design." Or even, "It may be small, but it has a charming atmosphere that makes me feel comfortable every time I step in." Pause here and repeat after me. Now, create your own advanced description of a small space in your life. Another area that defines C2 fluency is the use of idiomatic expressions. At B1, learners often use direct and literal words. At C2, however, idioms, collocations, and phrasal verbs become essential for sounding natural. For example, instead of saying, "I am very tired," you could say, "I am worn out," or "I'm completely drained." Instead of saying, "It's easy," you could say, "It's a piece of cake." Instead of, "I don't understand," you could say, "I can't make sense of it." These expressions bring your English closer to how native speakers communicate every day. Let's practice with a few idioms. Repeat after me slowly. "After working for 8 hours, I was completely wiped out." Now, another one. "Understanding advanced grammar at first can feel like climbing a mountain, but with practice, it becomes easier." And one more. "I was over the moon when I passed my exam with high marks." Each of these examples uses idiomatic language to replace simple B1 expressions with colorful, advanced alternatives. Try making a list of your own favorite idioms and practice using them in your daily conversations. Moving forward, we must also pay attention to nuance. At B1, you might rely on 1 or 2 basic words to express yourself. But at C2, you must learn synonyms that carry different shades of meaning. For example, let's take the word happy. At B1, you might only say, "I am han." At C2, you could use joyful, delighted, thrilled, ecstatic, content, pleased. Each word describes happiness, but with different intensities. Thrilled means very excited, while content means quietly satisfied. Mastering these subtle differences will make your English richer and more precise. Let's practice synonyms together. Repeat after me. "I was delighted to meet her after such a long time." Another one. "He felt content after finishing his project successfully." And one more. "She was ecstatic when she heard the good news." Now, try to imagine different situations in your life and use a specific synonym for happiness. Instead of only saying happy, push yourself to select the right word that fits the situation best. This will bring you closer to advanced fluency. Another important skill for C2 is paraphrasing. In real-life situations, sometimes we forget a word, or we don't know the exact term. At the B1 level, this can cause pauses or hesitation. But at the C2 level, you must learn to express the same idea in another way, smoothly and without breaking the flow. For example, if you forget the word restaurant, you can say, "the place where people go to eat food." Or, if you forget the word generous, you could say, "someone who gives a lot and is very kind." This skill keeps your speech fluent even when your vocabulary isn't perfect. Paraphrasing is a survival tool for advanced learners. Let's do a short exercise. Imagine you forget the word expensive. How could you explain it? You could say, it costs a lot of money, or the price is very high. Now imagine you forget the word library. You might say, the place where people borrow books. One more. Imagine you forget the word shy. You could say, someone who feels nervous when speaking to others. This practice trains your brain to keep speaking without stopping, which is one of the strongest signs of fluency. Finally, let's touch on register, the ability to adjust your language depending on the situation. At B1, you may use the same words in both formal and informal situations. But at C2, you must know how to change your tone. For example, with friends you might say, "Hey, what's up?" But in a job interview you might say, "Good morning, it's a pleasure to meet you." Both express greetings, but they are appropriate in different contexts. At C2, you should be able to move smoothly between formal, neutral, and informal registers depending on where you are and who you are talking to. Let's practice this. Imagine you are inviting a friend to dinner. You might say, "Wanna grab dinner tonight?" That's informal. Now, imagine you are writing a professional email to a colleague. You could write, "Would you like to join me for dinner this evening?" That's formal. Both mean the same thing, but the register is different. Try practicing by taking one sentence and saying it in an informal, neutral, and formal style. This flexibility is what makes you sound truly advanced. One of the most important qualities that separate B1 speakers from C2 speakers is flexibility with grammar. At the B1 level, learners usually rely on simple tenses like present simple, past simple, and future simple. At C2, however, you need to comfortably use a wide range of tenses and grammatical structures. For example, instead of saying, "I lived here for 5 years," which is grammatically correct but basic, you could say, "I have been living here for the past 5 years, and during this time, I've learned so much about the culture." This not only shows advanced grammar, but also adds depth and detail to your ideas. Let's practice with a sentence. Basic version. I studied English last year. Now, try advanced versions. I was studying English throughout last year, focusing on my pronunciation and fluency. Or, I had been studying English for several months before I decided to take an advanced course. Or even, I have studied English continuously since last year, and it has transformed the way I communicate. Each version uses a different tense and structure, but all show a higher level of control over grammar. Another big step towards C2 fluency is mastering conditionals. At the B1 level, learners may only use simple conditionals like, "If it rains, I will stay home." At C2, you must also use advanced forms like the third conditional or mixed conditionals. For example, if I had studied harder last year, I would have passed the exam with flying colors. Or, if I were more confident, I would speak in front of large audiences without hesitation. These conditionals allow you to talk about unreal situations, regrets, and hypothetical scenarios with fluency. Let's try some practice examples together. Repeat after me. If I had woken up earlier, I wouldn't have missed the bus. Another one. If I were living in London right now, I would be practicing my English every single day with native speakers. And one more. If I had taken that opportunity, my life would look completely different today. These sentences may feel challenging at first, but once you master them, they will give you incredible flexibility in expressing ideas at the highest level of English. Apart from grammar, you also need to build advanced vocabulary for emotions and abstract ideas. At B1, you might say, I am sad. At C2, you could say, I feel disheartened by the outcome. Or, her words left me feeling deeply discouraged. Similarly, instead of I am angry, you could say, I am outraged by this unfair situation. Or, his rude behavior left me utterly frustrated. Notice how the advanced words carry stronger emotion and more precise meaning. This is the type of vocabulary. Hat will make your English stand out. Here's a practice exercise. I'll give you a simple word, and you'll try to replace it with an advanced synonym. The word is big. Instead of big, you could say huge, enormous, massive, gigantic, tremendous, immense. Now try the word small. Instead of small, you could use tiny, miniature, compact, minute, modest, delicate. Now let's try good. Instead of good, use excellent, outstanding, remarkable, impressive, exceptional. Repeating these words and practicing them in sentences will help you naturally upgrade your vocabulary from B1 to C2. Let's build some sentences together. Repeat after me. The building was enormous, towering over everything around it. Another one. Her performance was exceptional. Every detail was carefully polished. And one more. He gave a minute description of the event, covering even the smallest details. By practicing in this way, you start to internalize synonyms and naturally replace simple words with advanced alternatives when speaking. Another area we must focus on is advanced discourse markers. These are phrases that help you organize your thoughts and connect your ideas smoothly. At B1, you may only use first, then, finally. At C2, you should use expressions like on the contrary, as a matter of fact. In other words, to put it simply, having said that, in contrast, by and large, all things considered. These markers make your speech sound logical, structured, and professional. Let's practice with a short example. Instead of saying, I like coffee, I don't like tea, you could say, I enjoy coffee. On the contrary, tea has never appealed to me. Another example. She is usually quiet. As a matter of fact, she prefers to listen more than she talks. And one more. The movie was long and slow. Having said that, the acting was truly outstanding. Repeat these with me, and notice how they give your English a polished, advanced feel. Now let's take a step into real-life practice. Imagine you are giving your opinion in a meeting. At the B1 level, you might say, I think this idea is good. At the C2 level, you could say, in my opinion, this proposal holds great potential for success, provided we implement it effectively. Or, from my perspective, this suggestion could be highly beneficial. if we consider the practical challenges involved. These advanced forms show not only your opinion, but also critical thinking and confidence. That is exactly what you need to move towards C2 fluency. Let's practice together. Repeat after me. From my point of view, this approach is more efficient than the one we used before. Another one. As far as I am concerned, developing strong communication skills is essential for career growth. And one more. In my view, consistent practice is the only path to mastering advanced English. Try saying these sentences with confidence, imagining yourself in a real conversation where your opinion matters. This is how you bring advanced fluency into your daily life. To reach C2 fluency, you must also learn how to tell stories in English. At the B1 level, many learners tell stories in short, simple sentences, often repeating the same structure again and again. For example, yesterday I went to the park, I met my friend, we talked, then we went home. While this is correct, it is not engaging. At C2, you must use richer vocabulary, time expressions, and descriptive details to make your story flow. For example, yesterday afternoon, I happened to meet an old friend at the park. We ended up having a long, engaging conversation about our lives. And by the time we finished, the sun was already setting, painting the sky with beautiful colors. This version sounds alive and interesting. It draws the listener into the experience. Let's practice together. Start with this simple version. I cooked dinner last night. Now let's upgrade it. Last night I prepared a homemade dinner with fresh ingredients, and the aroma filled the entire kitchen as I cooked. Another upgrade. Yesterday evening, I decided to cook a warm, comforting dinner, and the process of chopping vegetables and stirring the pot felt surprisingly relaxing after a long day. Do you hear how each version adds life, color, and rhythm? This is the storytelling skill you need at the advanced level. Another key element at the C2 level is the ability to express subtle opinions and emotions. At B1, you may say, I like this book. At C2, you can add layers. I truly enjoyed this book because the author managed to capture emotions in such a realistic way. Or, I found this novel deeply moving. The characters felt so alive that I almost forgot they weren't real. Advanced English gives you the power to show not only what you feel, but why you feel it, and to do so in a sophisticated way. Here's an exercise. Repeat after me. I appreciated the movie not only because of its story, but also because of the way it made me reflect on my own life. Another one. I enjoyed the music, mainly due to its emotional depth and the way it connected with my memories. And one more. I admired the speech, since it combined clarity with a powerful message that stayed with me afterward. These kinds of sentences go beyond simple opinions. They give reasons, explanations, and emotions, all signs of advanced fluency. Another important skill at C2 is being able to hedge your opinions politely. At B1, learners often sound too direct, saying things like, "You are wrong." But at the advanced level, you can soften your language and show respect, even when disagreeing. For example, I see your point, but I'm not entirely convinced. Or, that is an interesting perspective. However, I would look at it differently. Or, I understand where you're coming from, though I'm not sure I completely agree. This type of language is essential in academic, professional, and social contexts. Let's practice some polite disagreement. Repeat after me. I respect your opinion, but I would like to offer a different point of view. Another one. You raise a valid concern,